Hello and welcome to Smash Hit Sports. I'm your host, Cody. Today, Nick and I have a couple games to discuss. Somebody, not going to name names, somebody lost the podcast battle this week. We'll talk about that. Oklahoma lost again. I feel incredibly vindicated. Bama is all the way back. Georgia looked great. We have so much to talk about. Awesome week behind us. The Week 11 slate, it's good. It's not as good as last week. But yeah, before we get started, make sure like the video. That's the best way to help the podcast. Hit that like button and subscribe so you don't miss any of our content. Nick, we just put out the college basketball preview with Ryan. That was a dope video. So yeah,
definitely looking at this slate. I think it's underrated. I feel like, after an amazing Saturday, this past Saturday, chock full of games that did not disappoint, by the way.
No.
Not at all. We'll talk about it. But I was kind of expecting not anything as crazy, and I'm pretty excited about this slate. So,
yeah, last week, it just in a whole, right? Not talking any specific games, but in the whole, we had electric games from noon to midnight all day long. It played. We had, in the opening game, obviously we had Clemson, Notre Dame, and whatever. Not really that great of a game. We had Texas, Kansas State, which was an outstanding opener. We had the SEC on CBS. Georgia, Missouri was a great game.
Florida, Arkansas.
Arkansas was a great game that came down to the wire.
Yeah.
A lot of phenomenal football. We had in the nightcap, we had Alabama, LSU. Had Washington, USC was outstanding. We'll talk about that. And then, to end the night, we had Arizona upset UCLA. An outstanding full week. Full week of football.
I'm an Arizona fan this year. I love that team. That was awesome. I stayed up till 2 a.m. I actually witnessed daylight savings happen live because right when that game ended, it went from 1:59 back to 1 o'clock. And I was like, oh, shit, I totally forgot that was going to happen. So that was crazy. And while I was watching the LSU, Alabama, and the USC Washington games, I experienced Nirvana. It was so great watching Jalen Milroe and Jaden Daniels look like superstars, and Caleb Williams and Michael Penix. There was a touchdown every 3 minutes, impressive stuff happening across the board. That was awesome. Yeah,
it was great. Flip it, it was almost as if the college football gods came down and helped us out, because it was one game goes to commercial, you switch over to the other one, touchdown. It was great. Same with the Iowa Northwestern game. That was,
oh my god, which was I actually watched that instead of the Clemson game because. But speaking of, we need to talk about how our parlay of dreams.
Okay, yeah. Let's open with good on the podcast, because I don't know if I could talk about Notre Dame just yet.
Yeah,
we had at the end of the show, we always give our best bets. If you don't listen that far into the show, fuck you. Not really, but listen all the way through,
you
right?
Help
a brother out. It was a plus 280 parlay, and it was the under in the Iowa Northwestern game, which not even a sweat, dude. 10-7, that was the easiest under of our lives. 0-0 at halftime. And then the over in Washington, USC, that over damn near hit by halftime. It was 35-28.
Dude, I saw someone on Twitter saying that the live line for Iowa Northwestern at some point in the third quarter was 3.5. I believed it. I don't know if that was true, because that seems kind of crazy, but they were like, I'm going to take the under 3.5 for the second half in the Iowa Northwestern game. I was like, that's insane. I'm going to take it too if I can find it. But we also could have taken the alternate over 90 and the alternate under 20 for plus 800 each. Combine that into a plus 2,000 parlay and been rich if we that's how free it was.
I love your gambling mind. It's we could have been rich if we just knew.
They both hit at half is what happened. We didn't have to sweat anything. And we posted the graphic, and I had a bunch of people DMing me let's fucking go. This was free money. I was like, yes, you wrote. So yeah, happy to all those people for making it to the end of the podcast or looking at the graphic.
Yep, absolutely. So a reminder, if you don't, listen to everything that we put out, make sure you follow us on all our socials to see that kind of stuff. But all right, let's Notre Dame and Clemson played a football game. All right.
They did.
Let me rant for just a minute or two here.
Please.
Notre Dame had every opportunity to have a statement game. A year after coming off of some really high highs. Last year we beat Clemson like a great game, kind of re-salvaged our season to go. I think we went 9-3 last year, right? Or 8-4. Maybe it was 8-4. But either way, to end a great year. And Notre Dame had a chance to say, hey, we're going to build on that in the Marcus Freeman era. We brought in transfer Sam Hartman, one of the best transfers in the country at the quarterback position, the most important position in the country, in order to have an outstanding game and an outstanding win on an outstanding season. And you go into a beat-up Clemson team, a Clemson team that's been down on their luck, down on themselves, terrible turnovers, and you lose that game. And Notre Dame is in a position where I understand the Notre Dame is overrated allegations. I always have, and I will. We're still probably going to go 9-3. We're going to make a good bowl game. We may or may not win the bowl game. But, at the end of the day, it's right around where we were ranked at the beginning of the year. About 9-3, middle of the pack. We'll end up ranked probably around 15-17, and it is what it is, which is fine. That's not the expectation at Notre Dame. It sucks. Our offensive play calling is garbage. I saw people saying that Sam Hartman was the problem. Do you know who our leading receiver was yesterday? If you don't know him, I don't blame you. I didn't know who he was. He came to Notre Dame to play lacrosse and then walked on to the football team and eventually got a scholarship because you can't have a scholarship from another sport and play football. Our leading receiver was a fucking white lacrosse player. We are Notre Dame. We are the Fighting Irish. We have the movie Rudy. And God forbid that we can't recruit a single wide receiver to come to our program. It's shameful. It's dreadful. Long of the day, we used to have Jeff Samardzija, Golden Tate, Michael Floyd, Will Fuller, Chase Claypool. We had weapons. We had Michael Mayer, Kyle Rudolph, Tyler Eifert, Cole Kmet. Unbelievable talents. And our leading receiver yesterday came to Notre Dame to play lacrosse. Shameful. It's shameful. It's upsetting. We will never, ever be able to compete with the likes of Georgia, Bama, Oklahoma. And I say that as an Oklahoma hater, the number one Oklahoma hater. Oregon, Washington, if we cannot get playmakers. If you cannot get playmakers into the University of Notre Dame, the University of Notre Dame will be Iowa with a golden helmet. That's exactly what it is. We play great defense and special teams, and we can't score a goddamn point on offense. End of my rant.
All right. So I kind of felt that a little bit on an emotional level because I get it, right? Clemson, we went through Sammy Watkins and Hopkins and T. Higgins and Martavis Bryant, you name it. And lately it's been Will Turner, the guy who's playing baseball for Clemson, is our most reliable receiver. So I totally understand that pain. And it's not like that pain has gone away for Clemson. From my point of view, the happiest emotion I felt was because of the podcast bowl. I was just like I wasn't even going to take Clemson when I was doing my game picks originally. I was like, Clemson's not going to win this game. Clemson sucks. I can't pick them. But I had to because it's the podcast bowl, and I'm really happy that I won because I needed it for the standings and all that. But
if you had not picked Clemson, for the record, I would have shamed you into the ground.
Yeah, I know.
I would have called you a fraud and a phony and a loser forever.
It was a must-pick Clemson situation for given all context. And I am very happy, obviously, that we beat Notre Dame. I didn't want to lose to Notre Dame, last year and this year. I remember, in the second quarter, I think you texted me, this is the exact opposite of what it was last year, where Clemson is the team that is totally underperformed and is going in and smoking the ranked team. But Clemson's still a 4-loss team, right? I don't want Dabo and this offense to get on their high horse and say, see, we were fine. It was just a fluky bunch of losses. Nothing needs to change. It's no. Things still need to change, right? So I'm not jogging around, the streets waving my Clemson flag. We're back, baby. No, we're not back. I love that win because I get to shit on you, right? Which I kind of have done already. I get to hear this rant that I've had to deal with this pain all season. Now you're with me in the gutter.
Lovely.
Yep. And, it's just nice to beat Notre Dame. Notre Dame is a big name school. It's always nice to beat them. Don't want them having the ability to say, well, we're 2-0 in our last 2 games against you. You're nothing. Clemson owns Notre Dame, blah, blah, blah. I don't want that. So I'm very happy we won. But I am very worried about maybe the domino effect of a win like that. I'm already seeing it, right? Dabo and they're hugging each other.
Buy your stock now.
Yeah, fuck you, Tyler from Spartanburg, blah blah blah, all this shit. We're fine. See, it's no. Feel the pain still. You need to feel the pain still. It's kind of a tough situation, but in general, yes, I am happy. So, and it was kind of a weird game. Clemson almost did everything they could to lose it still. In the fourth quarter,
yeah,
it should have been wrapped, and they were just incapable of putting the game away, and Notre Dame just kept getting the ball back down 8.
Yep.
Totally,
but it doesn't matter if you have to force the issue and you're relying on your quarterback to scramble to get first downs. It just won't. You're not going to win against elite defenses like that, and we couldn't. So.
Yeah. Yeah, and I mean, listen, you're feeling what I felt when Clemson lost to Notre Dame last year. It's only fair. So Godspeed to you. Godspeed to both of us the rest of the year.
Yeah, no kidding. Let's move on to the other games. Oklahoma lost in Bedlam, and this was. I think Oklahoma's fine the rest of the way out. I think they go 10-2. I don't think they obviously don't control their own destiny from a Big 12 championship standpoint. So I don't know if we're going to see the Texas-Oklahoma rematch. It looks like we're going to get Texas-Oklahoma State, but that is by no means a guarantee. That being said, turnovers killed them at the end of the game. There were some penalties that sucked, and I had a lot of Oklahoma fans in my DMs saying, you're going to shit on us this week, and it's not our fault. We lost because of, some pass interferences that didn't get called, whatever. And while I agree, can't leave the game in the hands of the refs. It sucks. It is what it is. As a fan of a team that lost this week, guess what? Can't leave the game in the hands of the refs. So what were your thoughts on the last Bedlam?
Yeah, I mean, I'm kind of upset that the refs had as much of an impact as they did. I totally get the complaints. It looks like the refs were genuinely out to get Oklahoma towards the end of that game. It was confusing. It just felt there was a vibe, a rigged vibe to it towards the end there. I agree with what you're saying. Did the refs call it? No. So there's nothing you can do about it. That's why we have refs. They'll fuck up every now and then. It just did have a weird vibe to it. You called that. You had Oklahoma State. I think you actually had them in your Big 12 championship when we recorded in August.
Yes, sir.
Right?
Yes, sir.
And so, that's now looking very likely. Now, I won't count out
against Kansas State, but
yeah. Oh, against Kansas State. Well, listen, that's not out of the question.
It's not dead, but it's pretty. It's
Kansas State's a real good team, man. I looked at the luck rating that I've been looking at recently, and they were negative .02 on the luck rating. And after that Texas game, they're now the 5th unluckiest team in all of college football. and the unluckiest team out of any team with a winning percentage over 500 after that game. So that means they kind of got the short end of the stick in that Texas game as far as what was the EPA, expected points added per play, what actually ended up happening, blah, blah, blah. They easily could have beat Texas, and, Texas just happened to escape with it. So, yeah, the Big 12 is wild, as we knew. But what do you think about Texas? I feel like you might be worried.
Yeah, I've got concern, man. And I understand that the rest of their schedule, this was probably the most difficult game for them the rest of the way out, at least until the Big 12 championship. But I do have a little bit of concern. They play TCU at TCU. They play Iowa State at Iowa State the next 2 weeks. Those are not going to be easy games by any means. Apparently, Ewers has started throwing the ball a little bit. Hopefully that means I think they'll be fine against TCU, but back-to-back road games going into Iowa State, which has been feisty as hell. Obviously they lost to Kansas last week, and again, another good football game from this weekend. But yeah, they can't afford to slip up. They can't afford to slip up at all. And I do the Big 12's playoff chances aren't great. I think out of all the Power 5 conferences, they're going to be the ones who might be on the outside looking in.
Well, it sucks for Texas because they have that Oklahoma loss. Now Oklahoma is just, falling down drastically. It looked so good for Texas.
Yeah, you never want to cheer for your rival, but you almost hoped that they went undefeated and then you beat them in the Big 12 championship.
If they were looking like, we're going to play an undefeated Oklahoma, and then if they beat them, you're beating probably a top 4 team.
Yeah,
and you're a shoo-in. But now, let's say it's Texas-Oklahoma State in the Big 12 championship game, and Oklahoma State's ranked 11 or 12 or something like that. It's not as impressive. I'm not necessarily worried about TCU or any of the games at the end of the schedule here. And I'm not really worried about Texas either, just because they had that game in control throughout until a minute left in the third quarter. And I remember this because it was 27-7, and I think I went to the John, and when I came out of the John and looked at my TV, the game was tied. That's insane, and I feel like that's kind of an anomaly. I don't think that's going to happen to Texas much. If they're up 27-7 against TCU, I highly doubt that it will happen again. So I think they're all right.
Yep. We'll see how it goes. Another game before we get into, or I guess let's start the Pac-12 talk. Colorado switched to a new offensive coordinator, and their offense looked like shit against Oregon State. Now, Oregon State has a great defense. This might have been I've been a Dion backer. I've rode the wagon. I've said all the things. But this has maybe been his worst move. He demoted, I forget the guy's name, but he was the former head coach at Kent State back when they had a good offense. And then his offense has been outstanding all year. Shedeur was one of the top 5 passers in the country. And then now they demoted him. They looked terrible. My assumption is he's going to be gone after this year. You are bringing in all of these recruits. You got a lot of young guys. You want to keep your coordinators. This is a really weird move for me.
Yeah. I mean, I was watching that game. It was 7-3. Oregon State punted back to Colorado with 40 seconds left, and the ball was down at, I think, the Colorado 2. So Colorado had to go 98 yards. Everyone's assuming just run the clock out, go into half. Your defense actually played phenomenal in the first half. You're only down 7-3. And instead, they decided to run 3 passing plays that resulted in incomplete passes that stopped the clock. And then they punted back to Oregon State, who had a great punt return. And then Oregon State scored with 2 seconds left. And then the halftime score was 14-3. That is inexcusable, right?
Yeah.
And that's kind of the offensive coordinator's fault, you would assume, or whoever's calling the plays.
I would assume Dion makes the call to go for it, but to be hey, we want to try to score here, but probably. That's still a bad call. You got it.
Regardless, it's just like that. That's dysfunctional. That's kind of the first time this year that I've seen like, okay, like that. Maybe you can get away with that in the FCS, but like that is not something that flies in conference play. Like,
no,
inexcusable, and that totally ended the game too because Colorado ended up making it kind of close.
Yep.
But terrible decision. So Colorado's kind of in shambles, but like we said, it's still a successful season regardless because they've hit their win total already, right? So.
Yep. Moving on to the other Pac-12 game that was absolutely outstanding. Washington, USC lived up to all the hype. It was points. Caleb Williams looked outstanding. Michael Penix looked outstanding. Washington's running back, that man, I have to look up his name because he deserves all the credit in the world. I think he had 4 touchdowns. I mean, just absolutely insane.
I don't know his name.
Dylan Johnson. Dylan Johnson. Yep. Transferred from Mississippi State. Was absolutely outstanding. I think he had 200-some yards, 4 touchdowns. Just an unbelievable game. All the credit in the world to Washington. I think they needed another win on their schedule to give this team a little bit of confidence because they didn't look great against Arizona, who turns out damn good team. They didn't look great. They played somebody else close. Arizona State. Yeah. They played them close. And they needed another good win on their schedule. 10-point win. Like, you put up 50-plus points. That's a hell of a win. So, shout out to Washington.
Yeah, definitely a shout out to Washington in that sense. USC put up a better fight than I was kind of expecting. You know, like, USC is still capable of winning games like this. I know they haven't. People are kind of going to write them off because they're unranked now and they've just disappointed all season. But they play Oregon this week, and it's, I guarantee everyone's going to say there's no way USC wins. Like, I don't think they will, but it's
have you looked at the line for that game? What do you think it is?
I would say Oregon minus 6.5.
It's minus 14.5.
For Oregon?
Yes.
Wow.
Yeah.
It was only 3.5 for Washington.
Yeah.
That's wild. It's in Oregon, I guess.
Yep, at Oregon.
Yeah. I mean, that's suspicious, I suppose. I don't know. I still think Caleb Williams is elite, and he's done enough to, retain. Although I do see some people saying Marvin Harrison should be number 1 on the big board, which I kind of get. So maybe it depends who gets the first pick. Like maybe the Cardinals.
That's fair, but you'll never convince me that a wide receiver is more valuable than a quarterback. You just won't.
Right. Which I agree, especially with Caleb Williams.
Yep. The other night game that was outstanding, LSU Alabama. I mean, holy shit. What did you think of the Dallas Turner hit in the third quarter of that game? It knocked out Jaden Daniels for the remainder of that game. They end up going on to lose. What are your thoughts on that hit? Because they didn't call a flag.
Yeah, listen, I don't get how it's not a flag. Like, my thing is the people calling Dallas Turner like a dirty player, cheap shot. Like he should have been ejected and like taking a scholarship away. Like that is just an play. It's like no. That's like a football play. Josh Pate said it best, I think, where he was like, he's so good that he has to deal with the pros of being able to get to the quarterback often, but also the cons of being able to get to the quarterback often. And the cons are that if you have like 10 pressures a game, one of those might be like a hair too late, a millisecond too late. Maybe one of them you accidentally are leaning down a little bit more. It just hits a guy in the wrong spot. That's football. That's what happens. Obviously, it looked like a penalty. He fucking took his helmet off with the crown of his helmet, and got him out for the whole game. And Jaden Daniels was the entire reason LSU was in that game.
100%.
I think LSU probably would have won. That's my opinion.
I disagree so much.
I genuinely do. Like, he was playing like a man possessed. Like, I think he would have finished with like 200 rushing yards. It was just insane. At the very least, we would have seen some sort of finish similar to last year's finish, which would have been awesome for everyone. So it was just disappointing, but I'm not going to judge Dallas Turner for that hit at all. I'm just kind of disappointed that it had to happen.
Yeah, I agree. Probably should have been a penalty, just by the rule and the way the rule is designed. But it wasn't a dirty hit. Like, that's how they teach you to tackle. Like, chest on, like helmet up. It's a great tackle. It just got him right under the chin, which, as a guy who's been hit right under the chin and knocked out of a football game, I totally understand that. Like,
yeah.
It sucks. It is what it is. It's not a dirty play. It's part of the game. These are some of the best athletes in the world running at each other in full speed.
Yep.
Like that shit like that happens. That being said, I don't think LSU was going to win that game regardless. They couldn't stop a fucking nosebleed. They did not even slow down Jalen Milroe. That offense was cooking. He looked outstanding. 4 rushing touchdowns.
It was definitely like I think Herb Street was on the call. He was saying like it was a who breaks serve first, a little tennis metaphor. And I think right before that, Jaden Daniels hit, LSU had they had the 7-point lead. Then they now were down 7. Mm-hmm. But I still think that odds are they were going to score, and then they just weren't going to stop Alabama. It would have gone to overtime, something like that, and it could have gone either way. Maybe I probably think that LSU was going to win because I wanted LSU to win. But genuinely, like, what I was seeing was just an offensive battle that I didn't want to end. I think it would have gone to overtime.
Yep, an absolutely outstanding game. Alabama now is on their own in the SEC West. They pretty much have that thing locked up. It looks like we are hell-bent to have a Alabama-Georgia SEC championship game again. Last of the Week 10 recap before we get into the props too. The Big Ten is the most lopsided conference in the country. They need to get rid of divisions. It's terrible. It's going to make for the most meaningless Big Ten championship game maybe ever. And last year it was Michigan and Purdue.
I think it's 100% going to be the worst Big Ten championship game ever. Right now it looks like Iowa is going to make. I think that would be like, I'd rather watch paint dry than watch an Ohio State or a Michigan just put the pounding on Iowa. We saw Penn State Iowa already. That game wasn't really fun to watch at all. Penn State 31-0. Yeah. Imagine that times 2. Right? Like, it would just be brutal. I know we've seen like Ohio State, Wisconsin, 58-6, stuff like that. But those Wisconsin teams were kind of respectable and just went out there and had a bad showing. Yep. None of the Big Ten West teams are respectable. And we might see like Nebraska or a Minnesota team that lost to Northwestern. I don't know. It's going to be brutal. So yeah, really good point.
Yeah, Iowa's at the top of the West, 4-2 in the conference. The next, Nebraska, Wisconsin, Minnesota, all 3-3. Those other 3 teams are all 5-4. Like, overall, it is just the most mid of all time. So,
yeah. Not to mention though, it's lopsided in general because like Ohio State, Michigan, Penn State, and then if you want to be so bold to throw in Rutgers as a good team, I will tip my cap. I will accept it. It feels weird to me still, but they're probably a good team. The rest of the entire...
They're 6-3. They would be second in the West.
Yeah, right. But the rest of the entirety of the Big Ten in general, like Maryland's been disappointing. Michigan State and Indiana stink, and then every team in the Big Ten West stinks. So there are only 3, maybe 4 teams that are even worth it watching in the entirety of the Big Ten. So.
I agree 100%. Let's move on to the Props 2 segment. Props 2, there's a team missing from this. Props to JMU and Liberty for moving to 9-0. Rest in peace, Air Force.
Yeah, it's sad. Yep, the Air Force.
We love our group of 5 kings, and we lost one.
Yeah, we'll talk about that a little bit later in this segment, but very happy for JMU and Liberty. Saw something recently saying that JMU, it's looking like there won't be enough bowl eligible teams,
which would be
JMU
huge.
Is going to get into a bowl. It's not going to be a high-end bowl. They're not allowed to play in the New Year's Six regardless, which is just so sad because we want them in the Fiesta Bowl. But they'll at least get to play some postseason football. It's looking like, so good for them in that sense.
Yep.
Props to, well, I'm going to let you explain this next one, but I'll say props to Lincoln Riley. I want to give Lincoln Riley props for finally firing Alex Grinch.
It's 5 years too late.
It took so long for him to do that, but he did it. That defense has been miserable for so long. And I was looking at this statistic where it was like the highest scoring offenses in college football since 2010 or something. And the 2018 Oklahoma team was on there because they were scoring 58 points a game. And their average margin of victory was only by 15 points. So that means they allowed 43 points a game. And it's like, of course they did, because that's Alex Grinch. That's just how it's always been. That's why they never ended up winning anything. And so I think that's going to be actually a pretty big turning point. I would love for him to explain why he didn't do it earlier. I need to know.
Yep.
But,
well, I'm interested to see how USC's defense looks this week against Oregon. Props to the Big Ten East. IU beat Wisconsin this weekend for their first conference win. Michigan State beat Nebraska this weekend for their first conference win, and then obviously Michigan beat the brakes off of Purdue. But the East dominated the West in college football this week, and it wasn't even like the teams you would expect, like IU upsetting Wisconsin, Michigan State. Like some of these teams, hey, you needed a win. You needed a win. You got to win. I'm proud of you. You don't want to go you don't want to go winless in conference. That would just been brutal.
Right, yeah. So good for Michigan State and Indiana. They get their one win. They probably still have to play each other as well.
They do.
Yeah, I'm going to give props to college hoops. Actually started today.
We're back.
We're so back. I'm so excited about it. But I was tracking a couple of the scores. Notre Dame was down at half to Niagara. They came back, got the dub. Clemson beat Winthrop. Props to our teams for starting out 1-0 in college basketball.
It's good. It's good to feel that that sense of victory for Notre Dame before we inevitably have a terrible season. But shout out to Marcus Burton, who is from like a half hour outside of Notre Dame. Like he's a local kid, like a 5'11" guy, not a top recruit. Guy went for 29, 4 and 4 tonight.
Love that.
Just an outstanding performance. There wasn't a single other guy on the team who had double digits. So carried them to a victory. And then props to, I'm going to go with the Armed Forces, Air Force being so noble to have their only loss come to the Army. I mean, it's just full circle. Shout out to the United States Armed Forces. I mean, we salute you.
That's a wave your flag type of game. Love that. Good for the U.S. Good for patriotism.
Good to know America's defense is back up. We're back up.
So back. Lastly, give props to Mike Gundy and OK State starting out, losing to South Alabama 29-0 at home. Now they're back. What if they win the Big 12? We're starting to talk about them maybe sneaking into a New Year's Six Bowl, so on and so forth. One of the crazier turnarounds I've seen in college football, so I want to give them props.
Yep. You love to see it. Let's get into the Week 11 predictions. We both did pretty well last week in our predictions, to be honest with you. I went 9-3. You went 8-4. Like, really solid weeks. And we picked a lot of close games. Like, I think we might have had one double-digit spread in the slate last week that we picked. Like, everything else.
I mean, it was such an amazing slate. And then a lot of the games that we differed on ended up being really close games. Arizona ended up winning pretty easily. JMU ended up winning pretty easily. But Ole Miss, Texas A&M could have gone either way. We had Oklahoma State that could have gone either way. Iowa State and Kansas, LSU, Alabama. the standings could have been. I mean, we differed on 7 things, and I finished 8-4. You finished 9-3. Of course, You got me by 1 game. It's very annoying because again, so many things. Like especially at the beginning when Texas A&M looks like they were going to win. It's the same story as always that I thought this was my week, and I ended up losing out. But I'll take it. I'll take 8-4. I'm not far enough behind for me to be eliminated still, so I can fight on.
Yep, and the comeback starts now, supposedly. But before we get into the Week 11 slate, make sure you guys like the video. We don't have any ads or anything, but the best way you can support us, hit that like button. So we start with a Friday game. Wyoming at UNLV. First off, a 10:45 kickoff. God damn it. I cannot stay up until 2 in the morning to watch this game. I will. I'll do it. I'll do it because I love the game, but
I'm going to do
it. Wyoming at UNLV should be an awesome, awesome game. I'm an idiot. I didn't put it in our picks. But for the record, I'm picking Wyoming. I love the fight in this team. Give me the Cowboys.
Yeah, I also want to go with Wyoming. I was kind of bummed you said that. It's on the road, which is tough, and UNLV is like a 5-point favorite.
Yep.
But like we've been tracking Wyoming. They've been in our game picks a couple times this year. Yep. You know, they're the team that beat Air Force earlier in the season. Kept it close with Fresno. Bunch of different things that they kept it close with Texas, for God's sake.
Yeah.
So
beat Texas Tech.
Yeah, they beat Texas Tech. By default, I find myself rooting for Wyoming. I have not watched UNLV play a lick of football this year. Obviously, I know they have a 7-2 record. They're pretty good. But I'm going with Wyoming. Kind of a fan vote, kind of a biased vote, but I hope they win.
Yep, we love to see it. All right, starting with, it's the biggest game of the weekend. Big noon kickoff. It is a shame. And I say this with every ounce of hate and disdain that I could possibly muster. Fuck you, Fox Sports. Because you are the reason, you and your stupid big noon kickoff, that this is not a night game, whiteout, Death Valley, or Happy Valley, Penn State. It should be a night game. This should be the whiteout, but it's not because it's big noon kickoff and you guys are a bunch of pansies that you don't think you can compete with the SEC in the night slate. You losers. Anyway.
Yeah, you know what? Fuck you, Fox Sports. I've never really thought about that, but
big noon kickoff is the only reason that this game is not. And instead it was Penn State, Iowa. That was the whiteout this year.
I hate it. I honestly hate it. They think they're so cool and special, like coining this big noon, like, we're Fox Sports. We have the Big Ten. We're gonna make them play at noon because like that people will remember it. It's like, fuck that, yo. I want to see this game at night. I want to see it be cool. Honestly, like I'm not even gonna be able to process what's happening as well when when it's a noon game and I'm it's adjusting to the day.
I'll be entirely too sober. It's stupid.
Yeah, it's that's annoying. But if I have to pick something, I'm pretty sure this game it's like going to be 99% of the country is a Penn State fan. Everyone's going to want Penn State to win.
100%.
Like it's going to be crazy with the scandals, the cheating scandals, which are hilarious. We don't need to talk about it this week. And just the fact that Michigan hasn't played anyone this year, right? Like this is their first competition. Yeah. And everyone wants to just be able to point their finger at the Michigan fan and say, see, you actually do suck. You just hadn't played anyone. So we want Penn State. I'll be rooting for Penn State 100%. But you're picking Penn State, and I'm behind 14 points, and I think Michigan has a very good chance of winning, considering they're favored. So I'm going to take Michigan for game picks, just a strategy play. Like, I have no other choice. But
that's fair. This line is so weird. 4.5 points. I thought it was for sure going to be closer to a touchdown, especially after like Penn State struggled a little bit after the Ohio State game. Give me Penn State. I understand. I said this going into the year. It was always going to be Penn State beats Michigan at home. Ohio State beats Penn State at home. Michigan beats Ohio State at home.
I said the exact same thing. That's exactly what I had, and I want it to happen. Truly.
And you know, and I again, this is 100% just me bullshitting, but you know that the Big Ten is whispering in these refs' ears saying, don't let them win this goddamn game. You rig this as hard as you can.
Yeah, so we cannot have this Michigan cheating scandal expand into the playoffs. You better beat them. You fucking James Franklin can't win a big game, asshole. Right?
Yep.
And this is a massive moment for James Franklin, and it's at home.
Yeah.
Like, this would be awesome. It really would. But we watched Ohio State, who struggled against Rutgers and has kind of just looked lackluster in general offensively all year. Yeah. They beat Penn State. And, like, Michigan's been blowing out teams and has looked really dominant. They probably have more talent than anyone in the country. What are they going to be able to do against Penn State? Like, logic says Michigan wins. But maybe if we all band together as humanity, maybe we can manifest this for Penn State.
Yep.
So,
I do think, and to go on the other side of this, I do think this has a chance to be a J.J. McCarthy Heisman coming out party. I obviously the biggest knock on him is he hasn't played anybody. If he comes out and throws for, 250, 300, and 3 touchdowns against Penn State, like
a really good Penn State defense,
he will. Yeah, like I will admit, as the biggest JJ McCarthy hater, on the internet, that he does belong in the Heisman conversation if that happens. So
yeah, McCarthy has impressed this year, right? Because like I wasn't necessarily a McCarthy truther, and I've gotten around to the point where I'm actually mocking him in the first round in my NFL mocks. But again, this is the game where it's like, is this real? Has he been good, or is this fraud McCarthy that we've seen in the past? I'm very excited for this game. It's going to be watched by everyone. Everyone's going to be talking about it. We'll talk about it next Monday, probably for 10 minutes. So,
yep, it's absolutely the biggest game on the slate. The rest of the noon slate, we have Alabama at Kentucky. Kentucky's a 10.5-point dog. We're both taking Alabama here. Duh. But I do think Kentucky's live to cover. You get the team coming off partying their ass off, So we'll see. It's on the road.
I don't know.
Maryland at Nebraska. This game could mean a lot for the Big Ten West. Mainly, I needed a game on here that was going to be close that we could possibly differ on. I went Nebraska. I figured that you would go with your Terps.
Yeah, I didn't even notice you went Nebraska.
I knew you were high on Maryland before the season, so I was like, he'll go with Maryland here.
I did, and that's cool that you read my mind like that, because I kind of didn't look at that, and I said Maryland, Nebraska. Oh my God, it's a 1-point spread. Give me Maryland. And of course you went Nebraska there. So yeah, we differ.
And then for the game that everyone cares about, and you're going to be like, why the fuck are these two dipshits talking about this game? Here's why. Vandy at South Carolina. If you have been listening to the podcast since before the season started, and to those of you that do, I love you guys. Thank you so much for supporting us through 11 weeks of football. Y'all are the best. That being said, if you've listened to the SEC preview episode, we have a bet. I am buying Nick tickets to a game. I don't know what game, or he's buying me tickets to a game. I bet that Vanderbilt would have a better record than South Carolina. Right now, South Carolina has 3 wins, and Vanderbilt has 2 wins. So if Vanderbilt beats South Carolina, that will give them the same amount of wins, but Vanderbilt wins the head-to-head battle. I'm counting that as a win for me. We didn't put that in the stipulations, but guess what?
That's
tough
fine.
titties.
You can take that win.
So this is a 14-point line. I'm riding with the Commodores. Let's go.
Yeah, this is the more we talk about it, the more we get further into the season, the funnier it gets. The fact
it's so dumb.
The fact that these teams are the bottom barrel of their respective conference is just insane. That we have so much riding on this game. The fact, I was so confident. That's the reason we took this bet. I was like, Cody, you're an idiot. Vanderbilt sucks. Of course they're going to win 2 games. South Carolina's going to win 8. And you're like, no, South Carolina's going to win 3 games. Vanderbilt's going to win 4. And they both suck balls, and they're hovering around the 3-win margin. I'm happy the spread's 14. That makes me feel pretty good about it. But you never know with these fucking bozos playing this game. And also, I will say, if South Carolina loses, I don't want to have to root for South Carolina to beat Clemson. So I get football tickets.
That would be an awesome nightmare scenario for you.
Yeah, can you imagine? I'd have to just sacrifice something in that situation. I don't know what. We'll get there if we get there. But it's weird that I'm rooting for South Carolina in general, but in this specific game, go Gamecocks. Fuck the Commodores. Let's go. Right.
I love it.
Spencer Rattler. Love it.
I love it. All right. ACC, Miami at 4 Florida State. I think this is Florida State's biggest test the rest of the year. I was thinking it might be Florida, and then Florida went and lost to Arkansas. So I do think this is Florida State's toughest test, at least until the ACC championship game. If they end up, it looks like they'll probably play Louisville. So what are your thoughts on this game? Do you think Tyler Van Dyke has enough in the tank?
I actually do. I do. I think Florida State is dealing with a little bit of an injury bug, a little bit of – this is what happens when your schedule is just so easy for such a long stretch of time. You saw it with Clemson a couple times. Go back to 2016. It was probably week 11 that Clemson lost to Pittsburgh, who was 4-4, 5-5 at the time, right? You're playing obviously Clemson had Louisville that year, which was great, but you could compare that to Florida State's LSU game or Florida State's Clemson game. Then Clemson plays all these bottom barrel ACC teams, doesn't have to sweat, and then loses a weird one at home. I can see that happening here. I think a lot of people are down enough on Miami. Miami has kind of become a meme or just an embarrassment this season. They're still good. They still have a ton of talent. This is a game that they're going to get up for. I'm taking this is maybe I told myself in the past, do not be stupid. Don't take Miami in this game. Don't take a team that's plus 14.5. But I'm going to do it because I've kind of been predicting it all year. People keep asking me, who do you have Florida State losing to? Why don't you have them in the CFP? And it's well, it's either the ACC championship game or don't sleep on that Miami game. So I'm going to go with Miami.
Yeah, we are in a spot now where teams start to look ahead. They start to look at conference championships and shit, and that's when these teams start to slip up. And I think Florida State has a shot to do it. I'm on Florida State this weekend, but I think Florida State has a chance to do it. I also think that Washington has a chance to slip up against Utah because this Utah team has a history of just ruining people's seasons.
Very true.
13 Utah coming into Washington, so it at least is in Seattle. You'll have the sailgating and stuff going on. Washington is a 9-point favorite. I thought that line was tighter. Yeah. Yep. I thought that. So over-unders 54.5, a little lower than what Washington games have been in the past. It'll be really interesting to see this game. I think it'll be my prediction, I have Washington winning it. I think this will be a one-possession game. I think it'll be close.
Yeah, the -9, I think you can feel pretty safe taking Utah there. That's no guarantee. It's not my best bets, but I do also have Washington winning. I think the reasoning behind that is just that they're at home. Again, the Pac-12 has been a home-dominated conference so far this season, with a few exceptions, obviously. But it seems like the home team is escaping any close game that ever happened. So I'm going to go with Washington in this one.
Yep. Next game, an awesome SEC battle for the SEC East. This game will decide who is the second best team in the SEC East. Is it Tennessee? Is it Missouri? Well, maybe not. I guess if Missouri only has 2 and Tennessee loses to Georgia later down the line, whatever. But 14 Tennessee at 16 Missouri. Missouri's plus 1.5, so this is basically a pick 'em. Should be an outstanding game. I'm excited to see Josh Heupel's offense against a Missouri team that kind of does let up a little bit of points, and Brady Cook and Luther Burden against a really phenomenal Tennessee's front defenses look pretty good. This should be a really fun matchup.
Yeah, I feel like I was impressed enough with Missouri
Yeah,
in that Georgia game
I agree. They
where,
look great. They
yeah,
looked really good.
they looked legit, that they belong there. I
Yep.
actually like that the AP poll didn't even drop them down in the rankings that much. I didn't drop them down much at all, if any,
Me
in
neither.
my rankings. We'll have to see what the CFP does, but yeah, I mean I like Missouri in this game. They're at home. I think like they finished the year. They have like Florida left on their schedule. Like, and again, speaking of Florida, what's happening to them is exactly kind of what we predicted, where they were going to be really close to making a bowl game and then lose the rest of their games and go 5-7 or 4-8. That's what we're seeing happen. So I do think Missouri has a good chance of finishing the year like 10-12 and getting, maybe even some sneaky near six bowl. So I'm going to go with Missouri here.
Yep. I'm riding with Tennessee. I like Josh Heupel over Elijah Drinkowitz, and in games that are this close, I'm going to go with the coach that I like more. A game that is this line shocked me when I saw it. 15 Oklahoma State at UCF as a 3-point dog. This game is the ultimate trap game. It's at UCF, so you have to go to the bounce house where you haven't played before because it's not like a normal conference opponent. UCF is new to the conference. You are coming off a win in which not only did you beat your rival, you knocked your rival out of the playoff race. Not only did you knock your rival out of the playoff race, in what might be the last bedlam ever, you whooped their ass.
Mm-hmm.
This is the ultimate trap game.
It really is.
Trap game.
The +3 is like a glaring DEFCON 5, alarm that should be going off in any gambler's head. Like, whoa. Like, I actually think I'm probably going to take UCF in this game. Not my best bet, but I'm 100% going to be betting it. It's very trappy. So we'll see, because we've been talking a lot of good things about Oklahoma State. So losing to UCF would not be great.
Yep.
We also have Rutgers, Iowa on here, Cody.
Yeah. Rutgers, Iowa, again, another game that we needed something close, a game that matters a lot in the Big Ten race. This is Rutgers at Iowa. The over-under for this game, right? As of my lunch break this morning, is 29. Has a chance to be the lowest in college football history. And we got a chance to do some funny shit. So,
yeah.
Rutgers, Iowa.
Cody, let's skip right to the.
Do we want to do it?
You know what? I'll just say it. I'll come out and say it. We're running it back.
We're running back the Super Megalodon astronomical play of the millennium. I can't wait. All right. That being said, Rutgers at Iowa. Give me Rutgers. I think they're having a really fun season. Iowa did the fucking night celebration after a walk-off field goal to beat Northwestern 10-7. No. Give me Rutgers.
Iowa. I mean, it's just embarrassing football, man, over there in the Big Ten, in the low bottom barrels of the Big Ten. I'm going to go with Iowa just to differ here. It is in Iowa.
Yeah.
I do feel like Iowa's defense is good enough to do some mean things to Rutgers. Again, if the over-under is 29, like the way it's been happening with these games is it's like whoever gets to 10 points wins.
Yep.
I can definitely see it being Rutgers doing that, but just to differ, I'm going to go with Iowa.
Yep. Should be an exciting game. I will say Kinnick is a brutal place to play. So, and then finally, I guess we got two games. 10 Ole Miss at number 1 Georgia, a top 10 matchup here. This should be an outstanding game. Ole Miss not dead yet. I was kind of shocked about this line. Georgia's an 11-point favorite, which is closer than what the line was for Missouri. So what this is telling me is that Vegas thinks that Ole Miss is a better team than Missouri, which I didn't quite think was the case. But what are your thoughts on this game?
Well, I think Ole Miss is fraudulent. I had Texas A&M beating them last week. I think on the road, and it very, very nearly happened. But again, I do think Georgia's a bit fraudulent as well. So this is a game that I actually vote that anyone stays away from. I have no idea. According to the spread, I have no idea what to do.
Mhm.
But as far as game picks, I'm going to go with Georgia just because, I mean, they just out-talent them. That's just what it is at this point. And there's no more look-ahead games, really. Like, this is Georgia's. Like, Georgia was maybe even looking ahead of Missouri for Ole Miss. It's possible, right? Like, this is that stretch where Georgia know they have to play really well. I just don't see them choking here.
Yep. I'm taking Georgia as well. I just coming into Sanford Stadium and trying to win is going to be brutal. It's going to be brutal. I love Lane Kiffin, but I just don't see how that Ole Miss defense stops Georgia enough. So give me the Dogs in that one. And then the last game, a 10:30 kickoff. Beautiful end to a beautiful day of college football. You get unranked USC at Oregon. They got to go into Autzen Stadium. Oregon, a 14.5-point favorite. We talked about it a little bit earlier, but the over-under for this game, 73.5.
Yeah.
Not quite 76 like it was for USC Washington.
Doesn't matter.
An insanely high number.
76 hit with ease. 74 is going to hit with ease. We're running it back. Like, let's just. So I mean, yeah, I'm going with Oregon here. You're going with Oregon here.
Yep.
We'll move on to the best bets because we are going to take the Megalodon Intergalactic Atomic Bomb Whale Parlay of the Millennium Part 2.
Yeah.
We'll probably just continue to take it until
we'll just USC over, Iowa under. I mean, it's free money.
Which I wonder if we go back, like how often that actually has hit, because like maybe we were late to the party here, but like is Iowa hitting over all year?
I will look if you want to explain some of your other best bets or whatever.
Yeah, I mean a couple other of my best bets are, well, I don't want to put UCF in my best bets, but I do want to put Missouri in my best bets. I really like Missouri in this game. You get plus money on them at home. They felt like they could beat Georgia. They might have gotten just a little bit unlucky in that game. They were hanging around. Now they get to play a Tennessee team that I think is just a good, genuine tier or two below Georgia as far as talent. So I think that Missouri at home gets the job done there. Pretty confident in that. Nothing else really screams to me, but if I can get Maryland at like a pick'em level, I'm going to do it. And I mean, obviously I'm going to put in my mega teaser, which is going to be like 18 legs, and It's going to be really fun. That's where I'll probably put UCF, buy a couple of points there as well, get it to like 7.5. What do you find in here?
So Iowa is 2-7 to the over. USC is 9-1 to the over. So the only game USC didn't go over, they didn't go over against Stanford. And Iowa went over in their games against Western Michigan where they scored 41, and then against Michigan State, I think they scored like a combined 46 points. So
wow, good for them.
We're gonna parlay it together. The best one to do this actually would have been LSU is 9-0 to the over this year. They are the only team undefeated to the over.
Wow.
And this Pac-12 team that we said was going to be one of the shittier defenses in college football, Arizona is 1-8 to the over.
Yeah,
with the lowest.
That's because their defense is actually pretty darn good. And Vegas know that, right? So that just should show you that defensive coordinator deserves a head coaching job. The coaches over there in Arizona are doing a masterclass amount of work. Because I don't look back at my statement saying Arizona's defense was shit and regret it. Because, I mean, all it does is just say that Vegas thought the same thing, and it's just everyone was wrong.
Yep, they overperformed a ton. They
across
overperformed
the board, really.
A ton.
They're ranked. I love it.
Yep. Outside of that, my best bet for the weekend is. So we're going to do the Super Megalodon, but I also love the Vanderbilt South Carolina over. It's at 58. That number's entirely too low. I think regardless of who wins that game, there's going to be so many points scored. Not an ounce of defense is going to be played.
I can't put money on that bet. That game means everything to this podcast. This is like, we already have so much on the line that I'm not going to be rooting for anything else. I'm just going South Carolina.
You don't want to root for points?
I don't
That's
care.
disgusting.
South Carolina can win 3-0.
Loser mentality. That's such loser mentality. You already lost, dude. You already lost this bet.
This is outrageous.
I'm in your head. I'm in your head, dude.
I want you. You're in my head. You're the one that's making this grave mistake right now, betting me over in a game that means everything. We'll have to see.
Anyway, that's my best bet. That being said, I have not put out college basketball bets yet. I will start doing that throughout as I get some feels on teams.
When we get to Thanksgiving, let's start incorporating that.
Yep, for sure. So that being said, if you guys do want to see, we have the college basketball preview that's out with Ryan Hammer. Go check it out. It's phenomenal. We're going to do a college basketball trivia episode that's going to be dropping here shortly as well. Really, really great content if you guys want to go check that out. So as always, like and subscribe so you don't miss that kind of stuff. College football, I don't want to say this, Nick, but it's coming to a close, right? It's coming to a close.
Yeah,
but God damn it,
it's
been
Thanksgiving,
beautiful.
That's rivalry week, and then we have championship week, and then we're just kind of watching college basketball games in December, waiting for the bowl games to start.
Yep.
And then it's over, and then we're gonna cry. Well, no, then college basketball is in full throttle,
and we're right back.
And then we're so back, and it was never gonna end. You're never gonna get rid of us.
How many times can we be back in one podcast? I think like 5 or 6 in this one. It's incredible. So
yeah, record-setting performance from us.
Yep. Thank you guys so much for listening. We will see you in the next one.
All right.